Ladies, gentlemen, witches, bitches, Madoka fans of all ages and creeds and locales, we have information. That is right. Today, Aniplex Sony released information on the fourth Madoka Magica film, Walpurgisnacht Rising. And we've been down this road before, though not as much as I would probably like, considering all the delays and protracted release of this film. But finally, now I at least can come to you and say that we have a release date. Though it still says coming soon for all of the English language media surrounding the film, at least there is English language marketing surrounding the film, and it was released at the same time as the Japanese language marketing. But the Japanese poster here, we can see that this film will be released in February of 2026. That's right. After all the delays, we're finally going to get to see the film in 2026 in February, this coming winter. Now, will we, presumably, you're looking for an English subtitled release of this film. Will that be available in a theater near you sometime in 2026? That's the question. Will we be able to see this before the Blu ray release comes out? Now, I think yes. I think the answer is that they will do an international release, but nothing has been announced for that lately. We still have coming soon on all the English language promotional material. So, likely they will release a subtitled version of Walpurgisnacht Rising within a month or two after February and the Japanese release. But that's just speculation considering what they did last time for Rebellion and what similar big films like the Raise arc for Chainsaw Man is doing. So look forward to it, but you'll if you want it day one, you'll probably have to buy a ticket and fly over to Japan to watch the film. Now, in addition to the release date, we also received this beautiful poster, which I'm going to break down and go in a lot of depth on it with you. And we also received a new 30-second trailer with a lot of new shots, a lot of new content, and that helps us better understand the workings of the film. Perhaps I will say, because I have some speculation on that I think you're not going to hear in other places. So stay tuned for that. All right, let's hit this promotional poster for for the trailer first, because there's so much here, right? Can we just say that first, the composition, right? Like, we have Madoka in the top right and then Homura in the bottom left, and more associated with the earth and the hell and the clouds. It all looks very much like a Renaissance or Baroque painting, right? I have a great example here of the Archangel Michael defeating Satan. And you can see a lot similar in the composition with the devil in the bottom and then, smiting him. You have the clouds in the background, kind of the soft colors on everything. And it feels very much like they took inspiration from that type of painting when they were designing the background here and also the composition. Now, um, Madoka and Homusifer are still in the distinct anime style, and we see the other girls lined up here. But overall, I think they're recalling kind of these tragic myths, your Paradise Lost, That's the vibe that we want to be going with here. That's the general feel of the poster. Also, it's so much better than the Rebellion poster. Like, I went back and looked at the Rebellion poster, and if you pull it up, it's just like ugly as sin. So I love this so much more. Also, it's like so distinctly different from the first theatrical poster that we saw for Walpurgisnacht Rising with the two Homeras and the big phone in the middle. Now, the phone is something that comes up later in the trailer, but all of that symbology is like the dual Homeras and everything is kind of really absent in this image here. So let's get into depth with it. All right, where should we start? Let's start with The world will not exonerate her. Now, this is kind of weird because exonerate is not a word we use in English very much. You know, it has this feeling of like absolve or um, forgive in this, but really not. Kind of. It's like you committed a crime, and has everybody else let that go. And I think the implication here is that someone has committed a crime. Now, of course, that would be we would jump to Homucifer first on that one, right? Like if anybody needs exoneration for their wrongdoings, it's Homucifer. But at the same time, this feels like the most baity uh, element of this poster. That of course you're gonna correlate the words exonerate with Homucifer, but there's a number of other candidates here. Now, Madoka, the character, has never done anything that anyone would deem exoneration appropriate for, right? Like, she's a perfect little angel, or like concept or goddess, right? So that's hard to apply to her. However, stay with me on this one. What if she does something in the film that would go against her pure goodness, idyllic, magical girl ethos, and then she has something that we need to exonerate her for? Or she makes a similar, what do you want to call it, mistake as Homucifer did at the end of Rebellion. You know, wouldn't that be a good thematic parallel if Madoka did something that requires exoneration, and then none of the other girls are willing to give it for her? Or also you could say that Madoka's wish in episode 12 is something that requires exoneration, and no one will ever grant her that. Maybe that's a way of reading it. I like neither of those. I like neither Homucifer nor Madoka being the ones that deserve exoneration or want exoneration. Instead, I like the reading that either Walpurgisnacht itself is the one that does the misdeed that requires exoneration. And, we'll talk later about what Walpurgisnacht's influence on the story or role in the story indeed is going to be. But I think that's very interesting that like if Walpurgisnacht transgresses on whatever the characters want, and has their own agency, then that's something that a lot of people will hold a grudge against it or her for. Now, the actual kind of reading that I kind of like a lot more is we see here the designs for the two new girls, the one with the glasses, the green hair, the bangs. Is that bangs? I don't know hair. I'm bald. And the ugly skirt. And then we have the other magical girl with the pincushion design here and the orange hair. And she's holding Cubey. Now, this isn't the first time we've seen her associated with Cubey. We saw that in one of the later trailers as well. So you can go back and watch my speculation on those trailers too. Um, but having her associated with a negative force like Cubey, that leads me to believe she will do something that requires exoneration, and nobody's going to be willing to do grant it to her because of how evil we associate Cubey with. Like Yubei does not use the pronoun her, right? But and actually let's look, yeah, okay, so we have the female element in this trailer, or in the Japanese as well. I wanted to make sure that they didn't just come up with her for the English, but no, it's in the Japanese as well. So if it were talking about Kyubey, we would not use the pronoun her, right? Um, so maybe this character is an extension of Kyubey's will, and she will do something that will require exoneration, but nobody's going to be willing to do it for her. Um, However, if we wanted to go off the Madoka angle, so let's go over to Madoka and let's look at what Madoka's got going on here. First, we have this gorgeous redesign. We have the sleeveless top, we have the chain, we have the new frilly pattern on the skirt. It's just gorgeous, and it's Ume Aoki just like going off. And I think a lot of the redesigns that we see, especially in the trailer, are just them making it look prettier and having a new version. Now you could possibly say that this is maybe like a Super Sailor version that they have in Supers or something. The power up of the magical girl, where they get a new costume and a new powers to go along with that. But I think that would have to go along with a new ideology for Madoka. So she has to have a different role rather than just being trapped and trying to get out and getting back to Madokami if she gets a new outfit. Which is kind of why I'm suspecting, along with this, which we'll talk about later, this big bow situation, we'll talk about later. But right now, I just want to acknowledge that Madoka armpit. There you go, canonical. Calm down, everyone. Calm down. Um, Look at this here. We have the entwined like green around her arm with this which appears to be a bow, or at least symbolically close to what Madoka's bow originally looked like. Different flower on the top, and also completely different design with the tendrils and everything, and the crown drawing. This also is much different than the traditional, modern anime styling that Madoka herself is presented in. This bow looks like the Gekidan Inukuri witch designs. And that is pretty interesting. That like invites the idea, in one of the other speculation videos I said maybe we see Kriemhild Gretchen, right? Maybe we see some type of doppel control of the witchiness from Madoka. Um, and I think that this bow could be a real representation of that, or at least her coming to a new point of view or having a new um, area that she's dealing with, or decisions that she's making, or transforming in some way. New Madoka version, new Madoka ideology. Very excited for that. Scrolling down here, we see the obvious reference to the creation of Adam, right? With the Sistine Chapel ceiling. And is that right? I don't know. Check me on my art major, people. But yeah, God reaching out his finger to touch Adam and inspire life into him. But then Homucifer is not receiving it in the same way that Adam did, you know? So uh, she is palm open, kind of asking for more. And also, we see here, look at this, the lovely soul gem hid behind the back. Some clearly indicating some type of secret or some type of manipulation, that she's still acting in the same way um, as she was at the end of Rebellion, that she's still that person. Also, she has this red ribbon wrapped around her leg, which I don't really have a reading for right now. You could, of course, say the red ribbon in her hair, and she's got little butterfly tendrils up here, too. That's kind of weird. I don't remember those being there. Um, and this large, her dress comes down into this large wing, and I don't know, this kind of reminds me of Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII, with the one wing. It's kind of how his one wing is often depicted, but that's neither here nor there. But we can see here that this representation of Homucifer is very in line with the representation of Homucifer that we saw at the end of Rebellion. Now, why why that is, I think when we go into what I think the the structure of this story is and what the plot is going to be, we can get more into what Homucifer's role specifically is going to be. Also here, if we zoom out and see the composition again, we have these two new girls diametrically opposed to the Holy Quintet and Octavia here in the background too. And so I think that kind of shows you how this is going to be positioned at the start of the film. I think that, of course, all of these girls that we know from the original series are aligned with Madokami and her worldview. And then these girls ostensibly will have separate agendas, but I think that this is positioning them with Homucifer, which I believe may be the case at the start of the film, but maybe not for as long as you might think. I think that these two girls, they may not even have the same agenda. They may be different between the two. And I certainly think that by the end of the film, these two are going to have larger roles and they are going to influence the plot in ways that are not or are not parallel or aligned with what Homucifer wants. And Homucifer's kind of the easiest character in this image. We know what Homucifer wants. We know what Madoka wants, at least at the start of the film. So, I believe that's everything for the uh or the poster. Let's get on to the trailer. Okay, I'm gonna go scene by scene on this one with you, as I do on my breakdowns. If you haven't seen my Madoka Magica breakdowns, I have 17 and a half hours of me analyzing all the symbols and um, ideas, shot composition, themes, relating it back to the magical girl genre as a whole. I have so much of that available on my channel. Please go watch it. I'll link it at the end of the video and in the description. All right. First shot that we get in this new 30-second trailer is this one of the cranes. Now, the cranes are something that we've seen in every trailer for this movie. And the only thing that I can specifically remember of the cranes is when Homura Prime is in the new world and before she jumps down to fight the Wraiths, she's sitting on that crane espousing to Kyubey how the old world used to be. And, like, to me, that seems an intended symbol, right? And I think we will see Homura Prime in this movie. I'm betting. I made that bet in one of the previous breakdown videos of the trailers. Um, but also, this construction theme seems to be related to the temporality of the movie and the construction of Walpurgisnacht. And the dialogue that we have over the course of this trailer, if you haven't seen this trailer, go watch the trailer before you come back to my breakdown of the trailer. But the dialogue of the trailer is Homura, and Homura is talking about knowing Walpurgisnacht. We'll get into it. But it seems that Walpurgisnacht has not been created yet in Walpurgisnacht Rising, which, I mean, goes along with the title, right? But also the idea that the Japanese title of Kaiten and the doing it over again, you know, the revolving, the once more with feeling element to it, then in here we can interpret this symbol of the crane and the construction of these buildings as either like building Mitakihara City, which Walpurgisnacht is meant to destroy, or more generally the construction of Walpurgisnacht herself, right? And the various witches that all go into contributing to Walpurgisnacht. So I see these cranes and their importance being in that way of constructing it. Okay. This is this is kind of the cute money shot here, isn't it? This is let me make it bigger, sorry. Yeah. Isn't this just the cute money shot of this trailer? And just like how how emo Homucifer really is. Emocifer. Um, and you can see that this is Homucifer, or at least intended to be Homucifer, because of the Zetai Ryoiki and the purple eyes, and just kind of the malaise in her in her face, right? Like I think we're definitely reading this as Homucifer as opposed to either fake Homura Clara dolls, which we talked about in the previous, or Homura Prime. Uh, And I don't know that this whole aesthetic of blood is all that interesting, right? Like, I, aside from just the shot being the shot, I don't think there's anything meaningful of like a flood of blood or anything, right? But I want to bring your attention to, even if there is not yet a label for this calamity, and Sayaku, the calamity, right? And they don't really say label. I wouldn't have translated it as label, but like even if we haven't yet given a name to this calamity, so the port I want to emphasize is yet. that they say Mata. Like they say like not yet. We have not yet named this calamity, but we saw in the original series of Madoka Magica that Walpurgisnacht is a well-known thing for Homura for quite some time. And even Mami and Kyoko and everybody knows of Walpurgisnacht, right? So, this brings back the idea of temporality. Like, are we doing an Evangelion rebuild thing here, right? Are we going back and starting, and this is the prequel to Madoka Magica? Viable, right? Or are we retelling it in some way? I've certainly been of the opinion that this movie is going to continue the Madoka Magica franchise, and we are going to see more after this movie. But having this Walpurgisnacht being the catalyst for going back and revisiting the series is something that I've always been interested in, but we didn't get any information about that, like zero information about that in our previous trailers. So seeing it brought up here and being like the entire focus of this trailer and seeing it like be something that is being created um is very interesting to me, especially because of Walpurgisnacht as the collection of witches or gathering. Um so yeah, emo Homucifer. And then we've got this again, a reference to the final scene of Rebellion, of course, and perhaps even the episode 12 with the cranes at night. Um, and and I think that like I want to see how many visual symbols that they're going to directly reference back to the original series, and how many they're going to directly reference back to Walpurgisnacht or Rebellion. Like how canon is Urobuchi going to take all of that? You know, like obviously we're going off of the end of Rebellion, right? Like you can see my how I would rewrite Rebellion video up on my channel, but like with what reverence are they going to treat the decisions made in Rebellion? And this is kind of a big indicator that like Homucifer's actions definitely happened and had an effect and were in that world. Um, but yeah, why is Walpurgisnacht coming back? It could be a cosmic kind of destiny thing that I really like that idea that Walpurgisnacht is just a calamity that is unavoidable and is going to happen no matter what. But let's keep pressing on here. Not that far. This one we saw in an original trailer. We saw this, and it's not inherently that interesting. This mommy having a tea party thing. Now, if we consider it in the context of what happens next, though, I think it will be very interesting. So, oh, did you see that? It was super fucking quick. Let me break it down. Okay. So this is a like split second shot of Kyoko kicking open a red grated um, cage. It looks like something like that, or a door, an elevator shaft. We can go back here and see that yeah, it's some type of door that she's kicking open. And then for just a split second, we see a lot of water and her being distorted by a ton of water as she kicks open the door, and then we see her in a obvious like fighting sequence, right, or upset about the situation. And the other thing I want to point your attention to, because this comes up later in what we see, is these like donut backgrounds here. There's some type of like Gekidan Inukuri thing going on behind this cage that Kyoko is put into. So what is she breaking out of? Who put her in this? And one of the things that I had that I pulled up here was that this is not the first time we've seen a red lattice associated with Kyoko, right? Like that is her thing that she does all over the place, is set up a red lattice and then, keep people away. And that's, metaphor for her. You go watch my breakdown of episode 9 and all that jazz. Um, this is a very the point is a very heavy symbol associated with Kyoko. And then seeing her in the trailer be put in a similar situation in the red lattice, this strikes me, or I interpret this as coming from Kyoko. So, if she is trapped in somewhere that is associated with herself, that's a way of symbolizing something like mind control. Like she's a prisoner of her own actions, right? And she needs to snap out of it. Now, does that relate Back to the mommy tea party thing. Why, yes, it does. Because if mommy were to put herself in a prison of her own making, where would she go? She would go into her own mind. She would go into her tea party. She would be serving, coffee and cake and eating that with friends. And this is a fantastic Gekidan Inu curry of the whole tea party aesthetic and, that whole Bebe labyrinth. That kind of vibe. So I'm reading this as the parallels between Kyoko being trapped and breaking out, and then Mommy also being trapped and ostensibly breaking out. And so somebody, presumably Lucifer, right? Like that aligns with Lucifer's objectives and actions is to keep the other magical girls placated and stupefied. And doing that would be like putting Kyoko in a cage, putting Mommy in her tea party fantasy, and keeping them there. So, again, this goes back to the first theory that I have about this trailer that all of this stuff happens very early on in Walpurgisnacht Rising. Something that's going to come up later. Hold on to that. Okay, next shot. I know the name that represents this phenomenon. This is interesting. Before we talk about what's on screen, let's talk about Homura's line here. Homura is saying, I know the name that represents this phenomenon. Now, this could be Homucifer saying this, but I don't think so. I think this is Homura Prime saying this. I think this is like, follow me on this one. Like, if all these girls are like, oh my god, we're in a bad situation, or okay. Let's go back to the first one of the first trailers that we saw had Homucifer falling from the sky, defeated, and then a lot of symbology of her being locked up under these books, and then Homura Prime ostensibly standing over Homucifer who is locked up. So that if Homura Prime is an active participant in this story, I think she'll be introduced very early on. She'll defeat Homucifer. She'll bind her, and Homucifer will be kept inactive for a lot of this movie. And then Homura Prime will be the person that says, Walpurgisnacht is coming. I know the name because of everything that Homura Prime went through. And although the world is all fucky and that Homura has disassociated into two people, or there's timely, wibbly wobbly stuff where she's come across the world lines, all Steins Gate and shit. Yeah, that Homura Prime will be the agent that introduces the threat of Walpurgisnacht and helps the girls regain their memory and everything. We'll see more of that here. This role could be played by Homucifer, but it seems a little muddy to me, especially with what we saw in the earlier trailers. Okay, let's get to the shot. Okay, this is just obviously Sayaka's gloved hand going across a page. We can see her labor in the library where all the magical girl stories are. So she's looking at her own story, her own book, ostensibly, and then she remembers, everything that happens in her descent into becoming Octavia. And then we get this lovely shot. Look at this. I'll play this, actually. Look at that. Oh, the eye coming through. Oh, that's so good. Yeah. And then we see what is very clearly Octavia's eye, or one of the three, and then the elements of her labyrinth appearing out of Sayaka's bandaged eye. Now, this is very interesting because all this stuff we've seen about Sayaka has her in this bandaged form, and if the bandage is just revealing her ability to call upon and remember Octavia, then this, again, has to happen so early in the film, right? Like, this can't be the climax of the film, her remembering Octavia. They wouldn't show that in the trailers, and it wouldn't also be, something that is not that surprising, right? That Sayaka can not only remember, but call upon Octavia. Like, that's just, okay, we're fine with that. We have no problems with that. We've seen all this Doppler shit and like her controlling Octavia in Rebellion and everything. Like that's not new or interesting, which is why I kind of see it going along with Mommy breaking out of her tea party, Kyoko breaking out of her cage, Sayaka remembering Octavia, everything that happened. Now everybody's back on the level playing field, opposed to Lucifer after the events of Rebellion. Here we go. We're starting the action once again. Okay. Uh, uh, this this shot right here is the other shot that recalls back to the Kyoko shot we saw earlier, because we see these donuts in the background. We see these little light symbols that were clearly visible in the cage in the background that she was in. So this is her breaking out. I have no idea why she's using the blunt end of her spear to do things. I don't think she ever used that. Maybe to smack people around in the Sayaka fight in episode 5. But we also see the water symbology here. Um, Very evident. And whether that's related back to Octavia or this is something else, which we'll see later, I think it's going to be in the same scene as the other scene that we see right after this one. Okay. This right here. So what we are in here, this shot has a lot going on, right? This is we see these donut ass they're not spiders, they have 6 legs, so they're anthropods. These donut anth arthropods? Is that the word? Arthropods? I think it's arthropods because yeah, I think it's arthropods. Arthropods. And then we see the green magical girl controlling them. We see Madoka on a like Greek statue esque uh Greek-esque statue in a Chinese pagoda, which we see later in the trailer. And like this is a lot of symbols to take take a hold of, right? Like, why does the magical girl control the Gekidan Inukuri monsters, which were ostensibly her familiars? She has her witch powers awakened. We don't know. These look really, really cool, though. Also, why is it flooded? We see later on that the pagoda is at the top of a temple, and it would be hard to flood it. So what's going on there? Why is there a Greek statue in the middle of the Chinese pagoda? And the other thing that we're seeing is like this green girl is clearly opposed to the vulnerable, untransformed Madoka Kaname. So, is she trying to influence Madoka Kaname to do something? Probably transform here. Also, water. This flooding points back to this magical girl, the green magical girl, the new one, being in some way also the one that put Kyoko in the cage, or affected that, because Kyoko breaks out and we have that water shot of her bursting through the water. So that links that all back to this green magical girl um, being the one who hid these girls away or is trying to mess with them and get Madoka to do something. Now, that aligns very well with the actions of Ho-Musafer, or the desires of Ho-Musafer, right? Except for her pushing Madoka in a supernatural circumstance to do something. So is the I this is my reading of these two magical girls at the beginning being aligned with Ho-Musafer, but perhaps this action is kind of like a Asakura in Haruhi, when she's like, I'll kill you, Kyon, and try and get Haruhi to do something. This is like, oh, I'll push Madoka to do something. Maybe this girl is trying to get Madoka to reawaken to Madokami, and this is the way she goes about it. Um, but I think that would be something that happens over the course of the film, and you know, her motivations versus the orange-haired girl's motivations versus Ho-Musafer's motivations versus Homer Prime's motivations, etc., etc., etc. But yeah, more shots of mommy at her tea party, and this this boy, if you didn't think Akiyuki Shimbo was involved in the creation of this Madoka movie, boy, does that shot right there show you that he's back, baby. Okay, okay. Other than the memes, we see here the symbol of the rotary style old school telephone. And this is something that I think we'd been missing out on in a lot of the poster and the trailer discussion here, after it being such a huge symbol in the previous poster and the previous um, trailers. It was like all over the place. If you recall, that was where Homucifer was seated on one of those phones, and she makes the call. Right? She does the dialogue in the trailer through the rotary phone here. And there's also this big rotary phone with the spine in it that was in the original poster. This rotary phone, a huge symbol in this movie. Now, what are we interpreting that as? Just because we saw Homucifer call on the phone and kind of like lay down the gauntlet in that previous trailer, I associate this with Homucifer and her desires and how she's trying to influence the effects of the story, and specifically Madoka here, right? Like, if all of these are Homucifer's influence on Madoka to try to get Madoka to maintain being a normal girl and have her idyllic everyday life, then it's a very good symbol that Madoka is completely surrounded by them and overwhelmed by the amount of effort that Homucifer is putting into that. That she's getting all these spam calls and that that she doesn't have any other messaging coming in. Now, this may not be the case, because let's look at this very next scene. We cut to somebody hanging up the phone. But this is hard to see. It's in the uniform that a lot of the girls wear. But do we notice this right here? This bit of hair is the only thing that we can see. Also, no indication on the middle finger. So, wait, is that on Homucifer's right finger or left finger? I don't remember. But either way, this is likely not Homucifer, since Homucifer does not have this hair, right? That is not Homucifer hair. Oh, did you miss it? It was there for like a second. And I think that element, that hair, because the coloring is so weird on this shot, I think it's very deliberate that we're not allowed to see what the color of the hair is. It's like overexposed with the yellow. Um, but I'm going to make the call that this is the orange-haired girl. I think when you look at her hair later, you'll see similar hair like this. And I think that her mission could possibly align with using or exploiting Homucifer and this symbol that's been associated with Homucifer. The fake Homucifer for the Clara dolls that we see earlier on um, in the other trailers. And all this deception could be, she could be the like mastermind big bad because of how she's associated with Cube and how she could be manipulating the Homucifer symbol to her own end. That's just a that's a pretty out there theory. I know I'm reaching on that one, but I really don't think that both the green and the orange haired girls will be aligned in this film, or that they'll be aligned with Homucifer. So that's who I'm reading here. That maybe the orange-haired girl is doing something to Madoka, but maybe at this point they are aligned, because we can see back on this shot the green-haired girl trying to influence Madoka, and if the orange-haired girl is making the phone call here, then maybe she's trying to influence Madoka as well. Maybe they're both good guys and they're just trying to wake up Madokami, and this is their way of going about it, and the Shimbo ass way of showing us it could be. All right. Next shot is the Chinese temple situation here, which is just like, look at this, look at the absurd geometry, and I don't recall this being anywhere um in the extended Madoka kind of lore, except for, do you remember that one doppel? I think it's like the first doppel that they fight in Magia Record, and that has the Chinese pagoda, or one of the doppels they fight has the Chinese pagoda aesthetic with it. And know that this means a whole lot. Maybe it does. Maybe I'm missing some symbolism here on how the Chinese temple is used. But this is clearly supernatural, right? This is clearly like a rebellion ass geometry. This is clearly like, I don't know, it reminds me of Otri Academy from Adolescence of Utna. Um, just like, what's going on here? How does this flood, right? This is all abstract and supernatural, and we're in Homucifer's bullshit world as established by the half moon shot, so it shouldn't be that crazy. Crazy geometry like this can exist, but you know, what are the symbols going on here? What's going on here? Also, like, is it built upon like pillar? Do you see this underneath of it, right? Like, yes, we see the Chinese stuff, but then we see this masonry here, and these look like Greek columns to me. And that would make a little more sense with the Greek statue that Madoka is clinging to in that. Maybe this could be in a big extended metaphor for building on Madoka's original wish and her power, and then Homura putting all the trappings and hiding that away, and something like that. Maybe you could bring out something like that. And but hey, the movie's not even out, and that's for a post viewing reading. A throng of witches woven as one. That's pretty straightforward. Like, Walpurgisnacht is just that. But I like that it transitions over to here. I've always liked the library, and I'm calling this library. I don't know what it's going to be, but it could be because it reminds me of the library in Penguin Drum. Um, also, there's a lot of Evangelion feeling references too on a lot of the with the Tang and that red water shot, and the crosses in that previous shot. Anyway, I'm distracting myself, but I love the aesthetics of this library, and this is very clearly like where Sayaka finds her past, the past of all magical girls, the history of everything. This library is very clearly the representation of the history of all magical girls and how they were always that information has been stored. It's not been destroyed, right? Homucifer didn't take it away. She just buried it, and this is the mechanism by which everybody comes to remember what happened in the story of Madoka Magica, the series, as opposed to Rebellion. Lovely aesthetics, and I really love the feminine figure in the middle here, which we can clearly see later on. And because all of these shots are associated so closely together, I think there's a lot linking them that it feels like this is all happening at the same time and concurrently. So stay with me on this one. We see Sayaka, she's about to have her revelation and reveal the bandage and etc. Our next shot here. Whoa, we missed it. Missed it. There it is. Oh, guess who it is, guys? Surprise! I think that maybe this is associating like Walpurgisnacht with every magical girl because it comes after the library shot. Like, what if Walpurgisnacht is every magical girl ever? Like their grief that has not been accounted for because you locked Madokami away. What if she's the karmic destiny of the bad end of every magical girl? That could be something. Also, we've got the familiars over here. Very cool. We've got the Gekidani Inukuri curtains pulling back again as it's a play. Also very highly established and associated with Walpurgisnacht in episode 11. And anytime Walpurgisnacht appears, we get the kind of the peeling back of the curtains, like it's the big play. So this is all familiar with what we've seen before, but it is good to know that Walpurgisnacht actually herself will appear in this film, right? So, in what context Walpurgisnacht is going to operate? That's again, I have so many thoughts about this. Like, Walpurgisnacht could be the ultimate big bad, right? Like, she could be just, oh, it's coming again. There's nothing we can do. It is the inevitable endpoint of magical girls existing that Walpurgisnacht comes and it kills everything, and that we cannot overcome it by any power that we here possess, except we release Madokami, right? Like ultimate good will defeat ultimate evil. Maybe it's positioned in that way. I think that I pulled up the old trailer, right? Because we don't have an answer for where's the old trailer? Ah, damn, did I close it? Okay. Um fuck, I closed it. But in the old trailer we had that shot of the magical girl that kind of looked like Madoka, but she had much bigger boobs. It kind of looked like Homer, but the outfit looked more like mommy, and we were like, who is this magical girl? And she gets the ribbons tied around her center. And I made the comment back then that I think that magical girl is Walpurgisnacht and her representation of Walpurgisnacht. And I think that we will see Walpurgisnacht personified as a magical girl and as a witch. Now that it has to be a combination of witches, right? Um, but I think that that will happen over the course of this film, whether it's the magical girl or all the magical girls within history. I think that that will become Walpurgisnacht. And because of that, because that you have Walpurgisnacht personified or anthropomorphized. Yeah, I didn't want to say arthropomorphized, which would make her a spider or an ant. Um, I think because you're going to have a human representation of Walpurgisnacht, then you're going to have humanity infused in Walpurgisnacht, and she's not just going to be this ultimate destruction of everything. And I think she's going to instead represent the ideals of falling into despair. And maybe then you have home Lucifer unbound and her having to fight against that representation of despair, and then her take up the mantle as Madokami, like that type of thing, or like fully understand Madoka's wish in that moment where she's the last one left to defend against everybody else falling into despair, something like that. Like something more based, right? That really like challenges what's going on. Uh, I want to see something like that with Walpurgis, and I think that because she's so central to this, that I think that will be the case. Anyway, moving on, we see the introduction of the two new magical girls, right? So the first thing I want to note is that this hair this hair could be the hair we saw earlier. This little flippy hair right here on the phone that totally works. Also, this character has been associated with Cube, so in previous ones we've seen like her eyes cut out. Previous trailers we saw her eyes cut out and that evil face, and then the association with Cube on the trailer. So the pincushion design, very cute. Ume Aoki again, like go off queen. Oh my god. Um, I can't believe she still has more designs in her. Uh, but we also see, do you see it? Do you see it? The teddy bear. Do you see it? The teddy bear wand right here. Now, could this magical girl be the teddy bear magical girl from episode 12 that Madoka saved from the future? Like, yes. I don't know that I want to bet everything on that. There's plenty of time shit going on here, right? So it could work. We could hand wave that, and give her a different like form in the future with the teddy bears on her hair. Um, but I don't know because they have the same hair color. Uh, that's just my guess. That's just something I'm thinking about. But also, look here, this girl with the horn rimmed glasses. That she's smart. You see, and she is a planner. So I bet she could reasonably use Homucifer's power or like understand things more. Um, Also the choker collar. That's just such a good. I don't like her skirt though. Okay, where are we going? Our next shot. Oh, this one's really good. Look at this. Look at the. I'll play this and look at just watch. That double hit match shot, right? Like the cutting right from Sayaka's surprised face to Madoka's surprised face is so clean, and also is giving us the idea that this is happening concurrently. So as Sayaka is clearly discovering her past about Octavia here, Madoka is also in the situation where she's hanging on to the Greek statue in the pagoda, getting rained on by the green girl. Um, and flooded and like having some type of revelation. And presumably it's the same revelation that you were a concept, and Home Lucifer has been lying to you the entire time, etc., etc., etc. Um, Also, we're in the library when Sayaka is getting the revelation. Her bow is now purple, and her outfit is a little more elaborate than we've seen in previous trailers, which is just like they're doing so much with these outfits. They're changing them all the time. So I'm not reading too much into it. I think they're still like filling things out. You can just tell that this trailer has way more animation. The previous trailers were just a couple cuts they had done, and this trailer really feels like, oh, they've started animating the film now. And they have something to show, so that's good, even if it is another 6 months before we see anything. Um, but yeah, the way that the black background envelops Sayaka, really cool shot. This is again like a Shimbo shit. Um, but also it matches with a shot we'll see later. So if we go past Madoka, uh, comprehension is really great here when these two girls are having their revelation, right? I think that's a great way of contextualizing what's happening. Then we see here Cube, right? And then I believe this cuts to a close up of Cube. Yeah, right. So Cube in the library. Now, of course, Cube's objectives would be satisfied by having all the girls remember the past and everything that they went through. And Cube is a force trying to return everybody back to the original status quo from the series where it got the most energy from the magical girls. And obviously, at the end of Rebellion, Lucifer is directly opposed to Cube in all shapes and forms. So the library and the history would be something that Cube would rely on to reinform the girls and try and get them to act as agents against Lucifer to return the world back to its state. That's pretty straightforward. But we have another complication here because this next shot, and we can see the black background here. We see the books clearly showing that we're in the library, and we are now in front of the statue. And if you arrange like how everybody is, like let's see if I can find the Sayaka in the previous. Sayaka is in the library and she is walking towards the here you go, towards the statue's head, right? And she's over on this side of the statue. And then we see Homura appear right up here behind the statue, and then that's when all the background goes black. So this is all happening in in the same scene. So like so much of this trailer, it really feels like is happening currently in the same scene and is something that would be necessary to just set up everybody as the people that we remember them as from the start of Rebellion. So that's my idea that like everything that we've seen so far probably happens so early on. I would say within the first 15 minutes of this movie. And then everything that we're going to see afterwards, all the stuff is not going to be hinted at in the trailers, and it's going to be very twisty, and it's not going to be what we expect it to be. Okay, let's keep going. Could it be that Homura reintroduces Walpurgisnacht here? Maybe. Could it be that this is... Who is this? Okay, that's what we're asking here, right? This is not Lucifer, as it does not... Well, one, Lucifer's bound. Lucifer has Madoka's ribbon that she wears, and she has the Zetai Ryoiki, even in her schoolgirl uniform. So, who is this Homura? This Homura has the headband that we've kind of associated with the Clara dolls. Now, is this Homu a Clara doll that we saw in the previous trailers? And the popular reading of that. I'm not sure. Is this Homura Prime? Again, I'm not really sure. This is a complete redesign on Homura herself, like the bare shoulders, and we have not had this. But she is wearing the tights of Homura, right? Of original Momura, right? Moe Mura, sorry. So, is this a like fourth Homura. Like it sounds pretty crazy to assume. I think this role of helping Sayaka remember the past would be filled by Homura Prime, right? She would need the allies to stop Walpurgisnacht, etc., etc., etc. So could this be the redesign of what we're calling Homura Prime, Homura from episode 12, the original thing? We don't see her bow, we don't see her shield, we don't see anything here. We see this new redesign. So really hard to know, and it very well could just be the homunculus, right? The Claradol impersonating Homura that we've seen, but the eyes are the correct color. So we're not really sure. Um, the Claradol, if it's working for one of the other magical girls or separately on its own, um, could also have a vested interest in uncovering the manifestations of whatever happens and exposing that to um, the Holy Quintet. But who knows? Um, she definitely knows it's Walpurgisnacht, which leads me to believe it's Hope Prime. But again, I don't. I'm not sure. Ugh. Cool shot. Okay. When she hits Walpurgisnacht, it goes to this. And this is this explosion, presumably of Walpurgisnacht hatching, but it hatches from a blue gem. Now, what are we to make of this? I'm not sure. I think we will see the creation of Walpurgisnacht in this film. But Walpurgisnacht is a collection of witches, right? We know this to be true. Or of magical girls. Like that's the one kind of defining feature we do know about Walpurgisnacht. So are they all going to combine into this soul gem? Is that like going to be a thing? This seems like something that will happen later in the movie. But what the context is for that, get out of here, mommy. What the context is for this hatching, presumably of Walpurgisnacht, again, we don't know. Um, and I wonder, but I think this will be the ultimate bad guy of the film. Um, and I think something out of the control necessarily. I think you can't have Walpurgisnacht and have it being controlled by the green or the orange-haired girls, you know? So I think they will contribute to Walpurgisnacht, certainly, by the end of the film. Um, and yeah, then Walpurgisnacht functioning more as an ideal of like the big bad, like I said, that's something that Homer has to defeat. And reconcile in the same way that Madoka did in episode 12, and come to understand Madoka's wish. That's what I would really like. I would really like it, but we'll see. Again, okay. Did you get that? Did you see that? Yeah, we have the meme. Here's the meme, boys. There it is. And I'm sure I've made this the thumbnail right there, but mommy said, "Look at me. I am the one who bites the heads." Oh, that's funny. That's just good comedy right there. Um, yeah, that doesn't give us anything new other than that's cute. All right. Walpurgisnacht coming soon, or February 2026 if you happen to be in Japan. I think that is everything that I had to say about Walpurgisnacht Rising. Let me make sure I hit it all. Um, oh yeah, I pulled up this too. When we had this shot of Homura lying in the tang, or who Musafer in dejected in the thing, I equated that to, where is it? Here you go, Ophelia, right? That's the vibe I got from seeing that picture. I think that like it's more a tonal thing. It's not a direct reference like in Flip Flappers, but like, come on, you're right? Like drowning or Homusifer drowning herself and wallowing in the sorrow and not being able to deal with the ramifications of the stuff that's happened. Yeah, I I liked that. All right, let's go back. So there you have it. Puella Magi, you have your day one hour long video of Clearandsweet talking about the new Walpurgisnacht Rising news. This is actually the second time I recorded this video because the first time I used my mic and it sounded like shit. So be happy that I did it for you guys because I love you guys. Hey, if you love me, subscribe, first of all. Check out all the Madoka Magica content. I am the person with the most Madoka Magica content on YouTube. If you have not seen my 17 hours of me talking about the series, breaking down the shots, the compositions, the directing choices, the music, the line delivery, the symbols, relating it all back to the Magical Girl series, like, go watch that. Like, what are you doing? Especially before this movie comes out. You only have 6 months. That's enough time to get through my analysis. And stick with me. Yeah, subscribe so you don't miss the upcoming stuff. I've got a video on autism and anime characters cooking, but I've also got a ton of plans for whenever this movie does come out and we're able to see it, whenever that may be, of how I'm going to cover it and what we're going to be talking about. And I think from seeing these trailers that there's going to be a lot here to enjoy. So I look forward to continuing the discussion with you guys. And until next time.